Hi everyone, it's Becky here. Welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. Today I am going to Kitsilano Beach in Vancouver. So this beach is located in the west part of Vancouver at English Bay, very close to Stanley Park and the downtown area. This neighborhood is really peaceful. It has a nice sense of culture. And there's so many more interesting species of deciduous trees compared to my neighborhood. I love the willows, the cottonwoods, and the European beech. Oh, here we are, arriving at the beach as well. Okay, finally, here I am walking on the sand and looking at this panorama view. It's pretty early in the day, around 11 in the morning, and the beach here is not too busy yet. On the very right hand side, lots of driftwoods on the beach. And now sitting down on a large driftwood, I'm ready to sketch actually two views in front of me. One directly in the front and one on the right hand side. So I'm going to begin with the view on my right hand side, and I just drew a frame just so to create a sense of narrative of my day. So I just made this horizontal line that divides the beach and the sea. And I love creating overlappings in my urban sketches. So here I'm going to stop and add these two men chatting with each other. Now I'm drawing the contour outline of the mountain ranges in the distance. It's always so interesting to draw those folding lines. And then on the bottom, I think these are the apartment buildings in the West End area of downtown Vancouver. So as you can see, I'm just focusing on the rectangular outlines and the smaller squares or rectangles on top of those old-fashioned apartment buildings, and just use simple segments of lines to suggest the balconies and the windows inside the outlines. And then drawing the shapes of trees on the bottom, on the right side of these apartment clusters. And this tree here in the middle ground here on the beach. And some driftwoods, signs, some more little trees, and the foliage texture for this, I think it's a willow tree. And for trees and bushes in the distance, just keep those simple with fluffy outlines and no need for textures. Now I'm finishing this contour outline of Stanley Park, and it's a little island floating in the middle of English Bay in between Vancouver and North Vancouver. Now I just finished drawing the contour outlines of the mountain ranges and just drew those speckles of snow on top. Yeah, so basically just use these simple shapes to define the snowy areas on top of those peaks. And now I'm starting to draw the clusters of houses. This area is the city of West Vancouver, climbing up the mountains. And now I'm starting to draw these foliage shapes covering most of Stanley Park. And yeah, so just row after row of very loose. The shapes could be somewhat incomplete. And just adding a bit of accentuation on the bottom of the little island over here to give it more weight. So it stands out better, more like in the middle ground compared to those mountain ranges. Adding a little bit of detail there for some more interest. And drawing this pretty important diagonal line that separates the sea and the beach, adding some more driftwoods along the bank. At the same time, I'm also using very simple shapes to define the people sitting on those driftwoods. Now I'm using very gentle hand pressure to get these organic curves to suggest the uneven, sandy texture of the beach. And now just adding a cute little boat floating there in the distance. Final bit of foliage texture there on the right. And I think that's it for the line work of my first sketch. Now I'm drawing another little rectangular frame for another sketch of the view straight in front of me. Okay, so I see a family of two little kids playing sand, making sand castles with their daddy. So I just drew the simple outline of the little kid sitting on the driftwood, the dad in a hat, talking to him or her, and this other kid on the left side of the driftwood, using loose lines to get the texture of the driftwood texture, and drawing the horizon with the mountain contour outline right above it. And a cargo ship right on the horizon, and another one. I really like these cargo ships. They're always like floating so still, and they almost never move. Adding a tiny but lovely little boat there on the right side. And that's very much it for the line drawing. Now I'm going to add my sensations with watercolor washes. So I'm going to create a really calming and gentle melody with blends of gradients of blues, greens, and turquoise. I'm going to paint both pictures first, so I just wetted the two sky areas with clear water. Yeah, so now I'm putting on a super diluted lemon yellow for the sky above and the one below. The weather is a little hazy, so I feel a bit of mellow yellow underneath or around the blue. Now, wet onto wet, a bit of cerulean blue, and keeping my brushstrokes in horizontal directions to stay neat. And as you can see, the cerulean blue is interacting and reacting with the yellow, so changing that into a really mellow kind of blue, slight bit of turquoise. So when you're working with watercolors, you don't have to mix that perfect color or tone right in your palette. You could let the two or more colors interact and react with one another on paper using the wet onto wet technique. Same idea for the sky on the bottom. And also the water I mix into the cerulean blue is actually a lot to create this translucent and calming color for the skies. And I just wetted the sea areas with clear water, putting on some cobalt blue, playing with a mix of blue and green, a turquoise. As you can see, I am dragging and keep diluting the mix of blue and turquoise, and putting on a more concentrated turquoise with thick brushstrokes here and there, following my sensations. So the colors, as I see with my eyes and also in the reference photo, is not as saturated. But for me, I like to be more expressive with my use of colors. I like to spice up the colors to bring more energy and life to my paintings. Alright, so now I just grab a little bit of yellow ochre, dilute it a little bit to paint the sandy beach. And same for the one here on the bottom. This is a diluted yellow ochre. And this is the first layer for the sandy beach areas. Now I want to go back to the sea surfaces to add more sense of depth, because a few minutes ago the sea surfaces were too wet to keep adding more contrast. So this is kind of a green turquoise color. So really to try to add a nice melody to the lapping water of the sea. And same idea for over here. The sea surface is very calm right now. And just using pretty thin brush strokes. This is wet into moist. As you can see, the brush strokes are not completely fading away, creating a really nice and soft effect. Now I just wetted the foliage area first with clear water, putting on the lightest tone of green. This is a mix of lemon yellow with lime green for the willow tree on the right hand side, punching on a bit of cadmium yellow, and again some yellow green that I mix with lime green and yellow. So spring greens contain a really high ratio of yellow. Sometimes under the sun, they look even like a neon green. Now I am doing wet onto wet, blending on some medium to dark green with Viridian green, and Viridian green mixed with burnt sienna for the top part of the little island of Stanley Park. So in this way, I am creating a nice sense of volume for the island over there in the middle ground. Some more higher contrast for the top part of the trees. Those are actually many layers of trees overlapping together, and the ones behind, they're more shaded than the ones in the front. Now, just wetting the mountain ranges with clear water and putting on a little bit of diluted yellow ochre to show the earth underneath the greens covering the mountains. And now I am ready to do wet onto moist for the mountain ranges in the back. So I'm grabbing a little bit of Viridian green, mix it with the blue. The mountains in the distance, they look more bluish because of atmosphere perspective. Mixing in some more cobalt blue or ultramarine blue to intensify this green into a turquoise tone. Now I'm just dragging the residue of turquoise on my brush just so this part is a diluted green turquoise. So I'm trying to create a nice gradients of different values using the same color. A lot of times when we're painting landscapes, we don't have to mix or grab so many colors and blend them together. You can just play with water control to create different values of the same color. I'm also using brush strokes to depict the folds of the mountain ranges. And same idea for this mountain range on the left side. This is the same kind of green turquoise. Just mix a little bit more, intensify the version for the top part. So just laying these solid colors, and for the bottom, I'm just gonna keep it really gentle. And don't worry about brush strokes when you're painting. Your brush strokes should look pretty nice, following the right rhythm of the muscles or skeletons of the things that you're painting, not just random brush strokes. So sometimes if you're not happy with your brush strokes, that means you may not be following the rhythm of the things you're painting correctly. So for mountains, trees, and water bodies, they all have their own unique rhythms. So you do have to pay attention to the directions that they're moving or flowing in order to organize your brush strokes. Okay, so now I'm grabbing a little bit of orange diluted to add a bit of shade for the beach areas. And also grabbing a little bit of leftover brown to paint the edge of the little island there in the middle. Grabbing a little bit of raw umber to paint the driftwoods. And also using the same color, diluted a little bit to paint these old apartment buildings in the distance. Using this kind of leftover purple to give the sandy areas a little bit of elevation. And grabbing the leftover medium tone of green to give this willow tree a bit of volume from the middle to the bottom part of the canopy. Adding a slight bit stronger brown for those apartment buildings in the distance. And then painting the shirts of these two guys using pink, purple, and blue. I think the colors of their outfits could look a little stronger to draw the viewer's attention into the picture. And also adding these bits of colors for these people's outfits in the distance. Grabbing a little bit of turquoise green and use very thin brush strokes to paint the lapping water on the surface of the sea very gently. Again, the weather is not so bright, and so the contrast is very low, but still I want some more definitions for the surface of the sea. And now I'm ready to paint the mountains for my little sketch on the bottom. I mix my own turquoise by mixing viridian green and cobalt blue together. Again, my brushstroke is sort of following the flow of the mountain ranges in nice curves. Also playing with water control to allow a slight bit of tonal transitions of the same color. And also using the same turquoise to paint this gentle reflection of the mountain there in the distance on the seawater. And now I'm using burnt sienna, mix it with a little bit of orange and dilute it with a lot of water to paint these gentle colored driftwoods. And then cleaning my brush to grab some vibrant magenta to paint the shirts of these two kids, and also the dad's shirt. The head of the mom, I think she's blonde. And adding a bit of shade. Even for some small areas, I like to add like 2 to 3 layers to sort of change the tone of the color a little bit. And grabbing some leftover red-brown to paint the cargo ships in the distance. Some leftover sepia for quick brushstrokes of shadows on the bottom part of the driftwoods. And also add a slight bit of shade for the sandy area of the beach, just to give the beach a little bit more 3-dimension. And here is a look of my finished 2 little sketches on location at Kitsilano Beach in Vancouver. The weather is getting better. Ooh, there's a wandering Canada geese there. And stay tuned for the next video. It's the same day on Kitsilano Beach. I moved to a different spot to sketch the cherry blossoms and the sky and mountain view in the background. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. I update my channel with 2 to 3 new videos every week. Have a great weekend, everyone.